it's a beautiful time on television, independent television here in Benin City, and it's always a good time once we start in the morning like this with our discussion programs to edify you, educate you, and also to get you along your day. Today is Wednesday, the 17th day of October 2018. And of course, my name is Evan Zunokoge. Looking at today as United Nations Day for Poverty Eradication. Well, this year's zone is so important because it actually marks the 25th anniversary since the declaration was made by the United Nations that every 17th day of October of every year should be the year that nations of the world and of course world leaders should kind of draw the attention of their citizens, of their nations, to the need to eradicate poverty. Well, the poverty level in Nigeria is so alarming. As a matter of fact, recently a poverty clock was created, and created by a German Vienna-funded NGO, and of course it puts the poverty rate to about somewhere around more than 50%, because the way that the statistics is done is that about 89.6 million people live above the poverty line or live below the poverty line, and it shows that a whole lot of people are also sliding into extreme poverty. Now, you understand that the issue of poverty is so bad because when we say poverty, it goes to show that a lot of people will face a lot of human rights violations, such as the right to quality health, the right to good living, and of course the right of good education for themselves and for their children. What some people have also gone ahead to say that poverty can be a thing of a choice. You can decide to remain poor, or you can decide not to remain poor. Why some have also said that despite efforts, despite strides that they make, that the environment that they live in really does not encourage all that they do. Well, to discuss this today, we are so privileged to have Mr. Francis, yes, Waifu, also one big guy that always comes here on our program. For quite some time now, he has not been around. Mr. Francis, you're welcome to this program.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
It's so amazing to know that Francis Waifu is a policy expert and also a public affairs analyst. You're welcome one more time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Deacon Matthew Orobosa Hiobo is also with us today. He is an entrepreneur and of course the CEO of Mahio Shoe Directorate here in Benin City. So you're welcome to this program this morning, Night TV.
Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. Now, let me start with Mr. Francis. Recently, the British Prime Minister was in Nigeria, and of course, she also raised this alarm that Nigerians rank among the highest number of people that are considered to be poor. Against the backdrop that we've also seen recently that the poverty index in Nigeria is so alarming. Alarming, in the sense that it is said that most people live below $1 daily. Most families, as it was reported, live below $1 per daily. Now, what do you think is really responsible for this poverty index in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. Thank you, viewers. For us, poverty situation has been alarming. And sincerely speaking, if we have had the right full people in administration, in government, we won't be talking of poverty as we speak today. Before now, we had a lot of investment before they started having problem, closure of some of the foreign investment like Kingsway and many other industries that were closed up. And before then, we had a lot of social activities that were being handled carefully by the people. But along the line, because of the government we were having, and because they want to kick against the foreign policies, like if you remember, one of the things that brought internationalization decree and other things were because of foreign intervention in Nigerian politics. And unfortunately, those attitude, made most of these companies to close up, and it was now given to Nigerians. And along the line, they couldn't handle them the way it should have been handled. So some of these things is, one, the policies of the government. Most of the things that have really affected the poverty level is the policy of the government. And if you look at it right from before NGO were incorporated by the international community in 1945, you discover that there were a lot of poverty, group poverty eradication programs that were being handled. Look at Osusu, for instance. We had Osusu, where some of our poor people were really coming up to assist each other, to empower each other. But along the line, because of the government policies that yes, they want to get things done, along the line, some of these things went off. And if you also look at it in the banking industry, for instance, the rural banking scheme came up in the 80s. And those one came up for us to actually touch the lives of the rural people who are really poor. And because of the policies they put in place and they were not able to implement it effectively, most of the banks collapsed within that period. So these are some of the things that have been affecting the policy. The question for us is that if you are setting up a policy, who are those that you have brought into the policy making? Is it just because you know somebody that understands that you know that should come in to come and continue with the policy that you have identified, or you have identified to be incorporated or to be set up? So those are the things you need to first of all know. And again, if you even look at it in our rural, our environment here, you see people who are talking of better life. You talk of women empowerment and so on. If you look at the government policies and everything, you discover that who are those handling those government policies? You discover that they are all local people. Most of the people in the rural areas, you don't find them in most of these meetings and discussions. You hear them discussing them. So most of the people who are really poor, they still remain where they are. But those people in the cities are the ones carrying the, being appreciated that yes, they are doing what they are doing, whereas they are really doing it for their own personal income and personal earnings. So some of these things are some of the problems that is affecting the poverty level. Unless we have clear policy, good policy that should affect the rural area. If you are setting up any thing, you should identify the key people that you know understand this policy effectively. It is only then you can say, yes, you are setting up or you are eradicating poverty. As we speak to you now, the poverty level is deteriorating on a daily basis. So I've not seen anything that has improved beyond so that's why the UK person is telling you what exactly she said.
Okay.
So very right.
All right, viewers, the program is still this morning on ITV, and just like what I said, that today is World Poverty Day. Eradication of poverty is our focus today, and we are looking at the Nigerian situation. Deacon Matthew Ahirabo, it appears that when we say poverty in Nigeria, immediate attention is drawn to the rural setting. Hence, he talked about the rural women. But you will recall that recently, poverty is almost everywhere, even in urban centers. I mean, imagine a situation, a survey that was carried recently that about 86.9 million Nigerians live in abject poverty, far above more than 50% of the 180 million. So what is really responsible in your own opinion? Okay,
looking at eradication of poverty in the Nigeria situation, let us look at it from the entrepreneurship standpoint. First of all, from Merriam-Webster's Collegiate, it defines poverty as a state of one who lacks the usual or socially acceptable resources or amount required to take care of oneself. And it's also the debility due to malnutrition. What does that mean? When one is lacking the basic amenities, or like a nation lacking the needed infrastructure to drive the economy, that nation or that person can be termed to be poor. Okay, now, how do we eradicate poverty? Looking at focusing on the reduction of this poverty, the Nigeria situation, it must be that the government, like my brother really said, must institute policy and program to drive the economy. And this government can't do it alone. There must be a partnership, or if you like, a synergy between the government, which is the public sector, with the private individual. All hands must be on deck to see that we move this nation forward. Now, it will interest you, looking at World Passport Index, that Singapore, that is ranking high now in the World Passport Index, got their independence 5 years after Nigeria got their independence. But now,
that was 1965.
Yes, but now they are on top of their economy, driving it positively. And now let's define entrepreneurship, because you cannot eradicate poverty without looking at focusing on entrepreneurship. And that's why I like what NUC is doing for every student's penultimate year, to see that they must do the course entrepreneurship, whether you are in social, you are in art. You know, Unibest started it.
But some say it's only theoretical.
That is where I'm coming from now, bringing the practical approach to it. Looking at what we are doing from in a setup, you know, we are bringing practical entrepreneurship, not just theory, you read this, this is how you do it. No. How do we start a business venture? And what is your calling? What is your passion like? You must identify those things you are endowed with. Like Nigeria, it is not lack of resources that is troubling us as a nation. We have the needed resources, but we are not driving the economy. We sell our labor to the outside country. You know, the white man will refine for us, even for our industrial use. That will debilitate the economy. So what we are talking about now is that as government is instituting policy and program, they should drive it with the entire population. You know, all sectors must work optimally to see that we produce what we use and we use what we produce. Because if you do not produce what you use as a nation, you become dependent on those that are producing for you. And there is never a time you can live in isolation. You become dependent on them. You always go to them, maybe to borrow money, to get resources for your industrial sector. You know, they become father to you. They dictate your economy. They dictate. You see, your currency will begin to devaluate, will begin to go down. So what we are talking about now, as government is instituting a program, you know, they should also implement it. Not that you have resources, you want to build a company, you go and start it somewhere else. You know, your product should tell of your identity. And whatever you do, you should be able to drive your nation along with it. You know, you put your name, made in Nigeria, on your product. And you should be proud to use it. So people, they don't wear, look at textile industry is becoming moribund because it's not functioning. All sectors, even in education, thank God for Governor Obaseki now, is doing a reform in the educational sector and looking at vocational education also. It is very, very key. You know, look at United Arab Emirates and other Asian countries. You know, even India that was developing at that time, they've emerged. They are out of poverty. But Nigeria is still in poverty because we are not focusing on entrepreneurship. We are not focusing on production. The only way to drive this nation is through entrepreneurship. Civil service can do little. They should provide the administrative framework, but not to say we want to employ civil service can't employ the entire population. It is the public-private sector-driven economy that is going to help this nation emerge.
Okay, Mr. Francis Uwaifu, some have also argued that one sure way we can totally eradicate poverty is to take advantage of education. But we have also seen recently that the percentage at which we all have embraced education is on the increase. And on the other side, poverty is also on the increase. So it then shows that what is really the problem? Is it that education is really not one way we can actually eradicate, poverty?
Thank you very much. Education is very important. There's no two ways about it. But the question is, which area of education? Now we are talking of education. In fact, before, in the past, when you talk of Auchi Poly or you mention any polytechnics, the first thing that comes to your mind is technical. That these people are being trained on technical issues. And the moment they are out of it, you are sure of, having experienced person or somebody who has knowledge of what he wants to do. If it's an engineer, if it's whatever, you know why it's there. But when it comes to university, you know very well most of them are into pure theory, which is teaching and so on. But you discover before you know it, the same institutions that were known to be of this practice now start having business studies and all sorts of things. What can you gain from most of this? Whereas most of the business studies does not have what I call practical aspect. Rather, it is an official orientation that you use in getting those knowledge. But you discover that they've now shifted it to that place. And that is why I also love what this governor is doing in terms of technical education. But the problem is how effective is it? That is
what is this government doing in terms of technical education?
So that is the issue. How effective it is. It's okay, you brought it out, but how effective? What
is this government doing in terms of technical education? You are talking about the Edo State government.
Yes, I'm talking about Edo State government.
Yeah, what is it doing?
Yes, all I have known that it's doing is reconstructing or renovating the school.
Has it started anyone?
I want to believe that by the time he finishes,
has it started anyone?
I have not really. Yes, I know of
the B-Bold, the one at the junction, the one at the junction.
Yes,
at Technical College Road Junction.
Yes. I know they are working on that place. I don't know.
Have they started working there? I need to know.
In terms of construction or renovation?
In terms of renovation or reconstructing the school, they started.
Yes, they have started there.
They are sure?
Yes, very sure.
Okay.
At least I've seen it myself.
Well, we'll find out.
So I know they are, but how effective it is, that is the most important thing. It's not a matter of starting something, but do we how will it be continued? And again, we also have government policies that instead of having a continuous system, the moment the government leaves, the person in the leadership of that government leaves, the next person that comes in forgets what the man has done halfway and said it's not his part of his program. That is why we're having uncompleted project left, right, and center in everywhere we go. And we discovered that some of them have now politicized everything. Something that one person started, and you now came in, you didn't do anything, and what you are now saying is that you want to do another project. And that is where we are getting it wrong, compared to international communities where you continue with what they are doing. But ours is, we just want to. In fact, another thing that even bothered me much of recently is the policy of the federal government saying that they want to start, feeding our students, our children in the the primary school. So I keep on asking myself, how many family in Edo State, for instance, you want to feed their children in the primary school, when the parents are rushing to carry their children at their own expenses, to various schools? You are talking of giving them food. Where will you get the food? How many food have you gotten? And I'm sure money is being budgeted for all these things.
Okay. Now
that is one. And again, we also have what we call micro investment. And even the micro investment, you see in the budget of micro investment, you see that at least 1% is expected to be budgeted for every year budget. I doubt if those policies are really effective. Even if they are effective, I doubt if it gets to the grassroots. So these are the problems we are passing through. Do we have experienced micro person who can follow up those things? Are we able to follow up those issues? Those are those things we need to identify and see that it's effectively implied. You know, if not, we are just wasting our time, creating problem and wasting the resources of the great nation.
Okay. All right, Adikine here, but I don't know how you may want to reach the present administration because successively we've had and seen programs. We've had Better Life for Rural Women. Okay. We've also seen the Shopee, and of course, this present administration talks about the Empower program projects. All these are programs put together to eradicate poverty. So, how would you want to rate recent, policies by governments?
So far, what government has been doing is they're focusing on one particular segment, and that cannot mean the redistribution of national resources.
Which segment are you talking about now?
When you talk about like the Empower, they target a group of people to be empowered. And now, if you are talking about eradicating poverty,
which group of people?
What I'm saying now, they want to look at maybe market women, those that are, let me put it, the ones that are partisan to them. Because this program, it is not generalized.
Are you sure? Are you sure the ones that are partisan to them?
Yeah, why I'm saying is that, look at election is coming now. They will focus on, where they want to get maybe grinding machine, get one thing or the other. Those that they know is what we get that will be the beneficiary.
But I thought the Empower program, it's a kind of a program, for those that are educated to an extent.
That is what
they train you in a kind of a program.
Looking at that from that perspective, those that are educated. What about those that are not educated? They are not in focus.
Now, when we say educated, it may be formal education or informal education.
Yes. What we are saying now is that, not that the policy of government is not good, but what I'm talking about is that they should look at it holistically. Because when you are talking about per capita income, it is a distribution of resources over the total number of people in that country. So it should not be centered on a particular segment. What we are talking about, government should look at the basic infrastructure that will create the enabling environment for everybody to do business, for everybody to run their own enterprise. And those that are working, maybe in civil service, they should also have time to be engaged. And
in your own terms, what are these basic infrastructure you're talking about?
The basic infrastructure, the number one of it is power. Government should provide power, to power the machines, to drive the economy. Again, they should provide good roads. There should be access to raw material. Like the resources we use in our industries, government should make frantic effort because individual can't do it alone. We should refine this raw material. We shouldn't sell our crude resources outside for other nations to refine and sell back to us. These are ways you drive economy. Whether you focus on Empower, you focus on a particular people or not, there will be distribution, even distribution of wealth. You understand? And we're talking about national income accounting. If your gross domestic product is not high in your national income accounting, that country becomes dependent. It will be import dependent. And there will be balance of payment deficit, problem and all that. So what we are talking about is that government should focus on providing the basic infrastructure. Those are the nutrients. Somebody derive, when you eat a sumptuous meal, the nutrients you derive from it should be balanced. All classes of food should be present. Now, if your road is working, security is not there, there is problem. Now, looking at security, we're talking about Libya returnees and all that. What is government doing to engage them when they come? Now, you want to stop illegal migration. You want to stop criminality in the state. What are you doing to provide the enabling environment for those that mean well, for those that want to create value by pulling a unique package of resources together? What are you doing to engage them? You bringing them home to come and fold their hands, to come and be looking at you? They will do other things to survive. And the Nigeria situation we are talking about, the needed infrastructures are not there. So how do you intend criminality to reduce? How do you intend to foster security for those that are already working? You can see killings here and there, armed robberies here and there. What is the government doing? So the earlier we pay attention to it, it is good now if we do not do the needful, you know, 2 years to come, we'll be crying, 2018 was good. You know, 5 years to come, we'll be crying, there is problem of this, which was not in 2018. Just as we are saying now, in 2010, in 2002, this was like this, the price of rice was like this. It's going up every day. We must pay attention to agriculture. We must pay attention to our refining of raw materials. We must pay attention to engaging our youth. You know, whether those that are educated or not. Because what do you want them to do? Those that are not educated, they should go and die? Are they not your citizen? You understand? If you look at Asian countries, they don't even believe in theory. They don't believe in theory. You know, in the United Arab Emirates labor law and its ministerial order implementing its provision, which I have a copy of, from 11 years, everyone is engaged. All through the teenage period, they are engaged, that it grows up in them. The handsets we are using, they are made by children. What are we doing as a nation? What is driving our economy? We are oil dependent. If a nation that does not have oil, what, are they not surviving?
Okay, let me pause you as we make preparations for our conclusion, because we have another discussion segment of which Pastor Logat Sado is on the standby. Let's see the amended Electoral Act number 6. Now, Mr. Francis Wifo, some say that our population is probably responsible for the high rates of poverty. No. Nigeria is expected to have a population of about 190 million. You understand? Now,
it's an asset.
But in some other climes, take for example in China, in India, these people have used their population to their advantage, because some people try to explain the poverty rate that is simply because our resources are not there to go around the population that we have. So is our population really responsible for the poverty?
In fact, it's very unfortunate for people to make such statements, because one, what is budgeting? Why do you budget? Why do you have a proposal against? You are proposing against a particular year without identifying the population of the people. Now, India, their population is in the increase. China, they are in the increase. US, they are in the increase. In fact, most of these Asian countries, they are in the increase, and yet they are doing very well. And you are complaining of, population. The greatest problem we have is that the government has failed to do what is right. The first thing they need to do, or most of it, is the infrastructure. Infrastructure should be put in place. People are running away from a particular area. Let me just tell you of Adolo College, for instance. That is very bad. Everywhere is bad. There's no road there. And people who live there, many people that live around that area, they are relocating. Many of them that have opportunity to have another house, and some of them even move to, a rented apartment, just because the road is bad. But if the road is okay, and then the electricity is there, and other infrastructural means are working effectively, people will all come back there and settle. Now, we are talking of, even the government is talking of, they are building housing. They are looking for housing estate and so on. We have more than enough houses, as far as I'm concerned, in Edo State. In Edo State, for instance, you still go to places, you see vacancy, that, rents are, there are rents that are not rented. Why are they not rented? Because people who are supposed to rent it, they are, because of the infrastructure, the road to that place is not okay, and they vacated that place. So by the time that we start having those kind of problems, and you are talking of building an estate when many houses have not been fully occupied, and you are building more, so you are just wasting your time, as far as I'm concerned. It's like the government himself don't really know the priority that they want to identify. Firstly, look at the key things that are required from the people. Electricity, that is a power system, and then the roads. And if all these things are put in place, and then you think of the security. By the time all these structures are put in place, everybody will want to work, because an average Nigerians, they are all hardworking people. When people are saying that Nigerians are not, they are lazy, or the youth are lazy, I look at all those ones and frown. But the truth of it is that an average Nigerians, we are all hardworking people. If you use the right people at the right time, you get your result. But when you don't use the right people, what do you get from it?
Okay, Dikina here, but I need to get your first-hand information. You are the entrepreneur here, so what is your experience?
Yes.
Is it encouraging?
You know,
because, you know, I said somehow, some say that poverty can be a thing of choice. So if somebody like you, you know, has ventured into your own entrepreneurship and you are making great progress, what is the experience so far?
Yes, that is how it should be. Because beginning a business venture is not very easy, looking at the Nigeria situation, but you must endure it. You must endure it. Taking into cognizance, the Bible says, a little sleep, a little slumber, you know, so shall thy poverty come like a man that travelleth. So you must be hardworking. You must be determined to make things work. I've trained people in the past who refuse to establish here. You know, they traveled out because the economic situation is hostile. But what we are saying now is that we cannot always run away from home. You know, whether it is easy at first or not, let us endure it. And let government pay key attention. Let them know that they are the father, you know, to provide the needed infrastructure so that people will be willing to, even those that have traveled, that they will be willing to come home and invest. Because we cannot keep running away from home and thinking one day it will get better. Even where people are going to now, it is people that bore the pain, you know, to build it in the first place. So let government know that if they make things worse for people, they will keep driving people, and they will keep discouraging even those that have already established themselves. So by the time we get it right, it will always emerge. And the handwork or entrepreneurship is not just for those that could not go to school. So let us get that clear.
Okay.
You know, you go to school to enhance yourself, to broaden your horizon, you know, so that at the end of the day, you know what to do right, which other people that were not opportune to do can do. So that is how it is.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I've been speaking with Deacon Matthew Arobosa Hiobo, an entrepreneur here in Edo State. As a matter of fact, he's the CEO, the managing director of Mahio Shield Directorate here in Benin State. Thank you so much. And also my big brother friend, Mr. Francis Waifo, who is a policy expert and also a public affairs analyst. Well, I'm going to get you a word from let's see now. I have a word from the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, who is of the opinion that let us remember that ending poverty is not a matter of charity, but a question of justice. That is for our leaders out there. And also, you need to know the theme of this year's, you know, observance, coming together with those furthest behind to build an inclusive world of universal respect for human rights and dignity. So you see that the issue of poverty is something that all of us we must put our hands together to make sure that we eradicate poverty from Nigeria. Gentlemen, thank you one more time.
You're welcome.
We'll take a short pause now for that segment. Please stay tuned.
TMI, every opinion counts.
All right, thank you so much now for staying tuned to Independent Television on the program this morning on ITV. Yesterday, we witnessed the swearing in of Fayemi, that's the new governor of Ekiti State, and he's coming in for the second time, and some say the second tenure now. And, you know, Fayoshe successfully completed his tenure and, of course, you know, stepped down. And as soon as he stepped down, he had to make himself available at the EFCC. Before the close of work yesterday, many people kept their fingers crossed whether the EFCC was going to detain Fayoshe or not, only for us to be told this morning. And even for some people that actually followed the story late hours of yesterday, they were told that he was detained and, of course, asked to return 1.3 billion naira. Well, we're going to follow the story so that we'll let you know the nitty-gritty as the information develops. Pastor Logard Sado is with us here this morning. He's a lecturer with the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, University of Benin. So welcome to this program.
Thank you very
much. Now, let's take a review of Ekiti State, the election, the swearing in, and of course, Ayodele Fayose make himself available at the premises of the EFCC yesterday.
Thank you very much, Mr. Evans, and then good morning, my Edo people. The story of Ekiti cannot be concluded in one day. However, it's important to note that it's been kind of interesting. The intrigues, the surprises, the interventions, and if you like, the manipulations that probably took place in Ekiti are all there for the world to see. I think that the elections in Ekiti, well, I think that they are in court. We hope that in the process of time, the court will decide whether or not the election was genuine, whether or not the election was manipulated. But we'll leave that to the court to decide. But I think that Fayose handing over, and then Fayemi taking over, and then Fayose presenting himself to EFCC is beautiful.
Now, let me quickly, I mean, for Fayose to have gone to EFCC, was it that he wasn't aware that he was going to be detained or asked to return 1.3?
Not at all.
Because some people saw that boldness as questionable.
No, it wasn't questionable. Ab initio, the EFCC had been making these passes at him that he was going to escape, and that he had a lot to hide. And being a man of his word, the man told them, "I'm not running anywhere." You saw his customized shirt, his T-shirt that he made, that EFCC, I'm here, yeah, to show to them that, look, I am prepared, that what becomes of me after the immunity clause is over, I am ready to stand and face the charges that you have before me. Now, you see, it is jumping the gun for the EFCC to say return 1.3 billion when you have not proven anything. These are allegations. These are speculations. It is left for the law court to decide whether or not this man has 1.3 billion naira of Ekiti's money with him. Until that is decided, you can't ask the man to return 1.3 billion. Are they appealing to him to make a plea bargain already, when in any case the man has not accepted that he has any 1 kobo of Ekiti State money with him? You see, we are not surprised that EFCC detained Fayose, because we expected or ab initio that they were going to even harass him. In fact, you know, right from, they had kept watch over him in Government House, even while he was at the airports. And then when he landed, you know, all of this put together.
What about at the end of the day if he's guilty?
If he's guilty, he should face the books. You see, in the present day Nigeria, nobody should do anything and go scot-free. Nobody, we are not by any chance saying that if Fayose is guilty, that he should be forgiven or pardoned. No. The boldness the man has displayed is what is giving some of us confidence that he probably knows that there's nothing wrong with him, and that at the appropriate time, the records will prove themselves straight. So in the meantime, let EFCC not parade him as a guilty man. Do you understand? Let them do their investigation and charge him to court, and let the court decide whether or not this man is guilty. And if he's guilty, frankly speaking, he should refund the people's money to them. And then if there are penalties, he should face the penalties. But you see, when he's not guilty, and if he's not guilty, then the EFCC owes him and all Nigerians lots of apologies. Because why hit up the polity when you have not yet established any prima facie case against the man? That's my point.
And of course, for Fayemi is so hopeful, and we saw all the happiness on his face yesterday as it was being sworn in.
Yeah, well, we're happy for him. We are happy for him. I want to say that again. And then we hope that in the period he will serve as governor, Ekiti people will have a facelift. Well, you see, it is not yet Uhuru until the tribunal decides.
But what do you think is really the case in Ekiti State? What's the problem?
Well, you see, those who have joined cases with Fayemi are accusing them of manipulation of the elections, of rigging of the elections, of, manipulating ballot papers and stuffing ballot boxes. All of these are for them to prove in the tribunal. And you see, we will not jump the gun. We will wait for the tribunal to decide whether or not these cases are true. And where the cases are established, of course, the results will be obvious. They may ask for a rerun or something. And, you know, let's see. Like I said, the intrigues are inciting. We are hopeful that at the end of this whole process, we will come to understand whether or not there were actors in this Ekiti election, and who these actors are, and whether they will be penalized or punished. And in the due time, we hope that the actual winner, if it's Fayemi, let the court uphold him as the winner. But if he is not the winner, let the court do the needful, so that the democracy that we have always talked about in this country will be standardized, and that there will be hope for future Nigerians who are looking forward for a better nation.
Okay, just like what I said, that we are going to beam our searchlights on Ekiti State so as we'll follow the nitty-gritty political developments as they unfold in Ekiti State. Well, I did say that we're going to look at the Electoral Act number 6, 2010 amendments, Bill 2017 into law. Just as the National Assembly resumed sometime last week now, that was October 9th, we saw two key issues. The signing in of the Electoral Act number 6 into law, and also the INEC budget. And of course, we have them as itemized here. Well, for your information, yesterday the House of Representatives had to meet, and this Electoral Act went through the second reading. Second reading.
With little or no adjustments on it.
Okay, so let's see what will happen. But there's something I don't understand. The Senate has passed it into law, and we have the House of Representatives still going through second reading. How does that?
Yeah, you know the way the National Assembly works. We have a dual legislative arm. And so when the Senate has passed a law, it is expected that the House of Representatives will look into it, and if there are clause-by-clause adjustments that they need to make, and where they are not in agreement, they may have to collapse the two houses into one, where the Senate's president and, of course, the House of Rep and Speaker will jointly sit together and oversee the activities and come to a general conclusion, which will now make a single document. You know, it will no longer be the document of the Senate or the document of the House of Rep, but it will be the document of the National Assembly. So that's it. So I think what they have succeeded in doing so far is that they have agreed totally with all the adjustments and amendments made by the Senate. So the third reading will just be for formalities, and hopefully at the end of that, they will present it to the president for his assent.
Okay.
So,
all right. We'll have a new entrant now, Dr. Ekbu. He's a lecturer with the Department of Public Administration, University of Benin. So you're welcome to this program one more time.
Thank you.
Yes, we are looking at the Electoral Act number 6, 2010 Amendment Bill 2017 into law. So we did say that we're going to just try to itemize them so that we'll just look at them one after the other. Now, the very first one here we have is there shall now be full biometric accreditation of voters with smart card readers and all technological devices as INEC may introduce for elections from time to time. That's the first item. And also, we need to also know this bill has been vetoed before by the president, only for the Senate to override it. Now, before we start reacting to that, let's continue from where you were trying to explain that you know, the House of Representatives having their first reading on the bill, while the Senate has passed it into law.
yeah, so I was saying that the Senate they've done their amendment and they've passed it into law, but it's incumbent on the House of Representatives to also look at it so that it becomes a document of the National Assembly. So what the House of Representatives have done at the moment is that it has gone through the second reading and with little or no adjustments on it. So the third reading is just going to be for formalities. And then after then it becomes, if they have differences, they may need to collapse the two houses together where they will meet and resolve those differences. But in this instance, there are no differences. So it's as good as passed because the third reading will just be for formalities. Okay.
Now, I think the big issue now is going to be on INEC, how they are going to respond to some of these amendments. Just like what we said, the first one, there shall now be full biometric accreditation of voters with smart card readers and all other technological devices as INEC may introduce for elections from time to time. Doctor, you may want to respond to that.
Well, the truth of the matter is the National Assembly, under Section 4, to have the power to make laws for the order, good governance of the Federation. So they have the power to do that. And if that's what the law stipulates, it stands. And the INEC has no alternative that are held to that law strictly.
Okay.
But I heard you want to, sorry, I heard you were talking about it being vetoed by the, said the law was vetoed earlier.
Yeah, by the president. Yeah.
By the president. Yeah. And you know, Section 58, from Section 1 to 5, you will see the process of making laws there. And we'll pass through after the initiation, third reading, second reading, and the third reading. And it passed to the president for his assent. But under subsection 5, or that Section 58, the president had the discretion to assent to the bill or not to assent to the bill. We cannot question that discretion.
Okay.
So, to that extent, somebody was talking about if it is powered by total majority, if if the president fails to sign and it's taken back and it's passed by 2/3 majority of the both houses, become law. That is the true position of law.
Yeah, the question, continue,
But the issue you and I know very well, that any law that is not that fail to get the backing of the president or the executive arm of government, that law will be considered as dead, because it's the executive that implement laws, not the National Assembly.
Okay, are you saying that the National Assembly cannot override?
They can override is the efficacy, the effectiveness of that action. It's what we're talking about. Like, remember the issue of peace corps, who will say, oh, the Senate or the National Assembly will override. And if that becomes the case, who implement the law, who will appoint the officials, who will manage that arm of that particular organization?
What is the implication of when the National Assembly overrides a bill and there's no efficacy, there's no implementation? Is there no implication?
Well, of course, the National Assembly can also query the president. They can also initiate proceedings against him in terms of impeachment and all that. But these are not easy steps to be taken.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say in effort that the two of them need to come together, and so that the bill will have more effect.
Okay. Okay. Now let's look at the other one now. Presiding officers must now instantly transmit accreditation data and result from polling units to various collation centers, and that is presiding officers who contravene this shall be imprisoned for at least 5 years, no option of fine. Look at Sado, you want to react to this?
Yes, I think that the National Assembly, in my opinion, did this as a follow-up to the aftermath of Ekiti and Osun elections, where there are accusations and counter-accusations of reading electoral results that were not passed from the polling units. And you know, ab initio, where that is the case, you find a situation where the mandates of the people are circumvented. If you ask me, I think that this number 2 of the amendment is very critical. It will solve some of the issues that we have with our electoral process. For instance, presiding officers must now instantly transmit accreditation data and results from polling units to various collation centers. That means that you cannot now sit in one unit and doctor results. You cannot now sit in one unit and decide on these are the people who will be accredited, these are the people who will not be accredited. No. Once the accreditation is done, everybody knows the number of persons who have been accredited. And once the voting has taken place, everybody knows those who have voted for who and for who. So the issue of trying to say, okay, we are still collating results. You saw what happened at Osun. All those issues now will be checkmated by this, hopefully. Of course, we know that we are Nigerians. I have my doubts with all of these technological issues because we are specialists in manipulating issues. I hope that when the implementation of this comes, we will be able to implement it according to the letters and the spirit of the law. When that is the case, of course, some of the issues that we have with INEC at the moment and the issues we have with the Nigerian electoral system at the moment will be adequately taken care of.
Okay. Now, Dr. Ekbu, earlier on you said that the National Assembly, it is the National Assembly that overrides a vetoed bill. That's the upper house and the lower house.
Yeah, combined. Now,
in this case now, this bill is still going through readings. As a matter of fact, only yesterday just went through the second reading on the floor of the House of Representatives, and it has been passed by the Senate. So how do we put this together? The Senate passing a bill, whereas it's still ongoing in the House of Representatives?
Well, it's not something unusual, because the bill ordinarily must pass through one arm. It may not be at the same time.
Yeah. Okay.
But the issue that now a new process has started, until you get to the end and accepted by the president or vetoed, we cannot even call it a law now. That's the situation. So there is no implication whatsoever as far as the process is concerned. It's ongoing. It has not gotten to the final destination or becoming a law.
Okay.
So
now,
they are in order.
All right. Now, amendment number 4 says that INEC now has unfettered powers to conduct elections by electronic voting. Can we do that in Nigeria?
Absolutely. We can.
Sure?
We can and we should. You see, this in itself will now place an extra demand on INEC to up their game. You see, you know, we've always talked about this issue of biometrics, getting our data right as a nation, and then be able to have a database, a central database that can help us you know, even in criminal issues. Now, on the issue of INEC, it is incumbent on INEC to ensure now that they capture all voters electronically. It's also incumbent on them to ensure that not just that the devices are available, but that there are internet connections everywhere in Nigeria. Now, as funny as it sounds, I think that it is doable. Yes, it is true that it's going to be an uphill task, it's going to be difficult, but it's not impossible. The truth is that if they are able to apply this, we will solve a lot of problems with electoral rigging. Because it will now be like online real time. You know, as you are voting, it's counting for Dr. A, and as the vote is cancelled for whatever reasons, it's being cancelled immediately. So such that I can't stay in Benin and manipulate the data in Abuja. And somebody is not in Abuja who wants to announce the final result, and there he's over there. The results we submitted from Edo State is not the result we are hearing on national television. No, that will be taken care of. So I think that this should be supported by all well-meaning Nigerians.
Okay. Now, Dr. Ekbo, let me get
I don't ask what
Yes.
Well, the truth of the matter is that it's not the system that we are going to adopt that is the problem. It's the human factor.
Okay.
That's always the issue. As my friend raised, we can put all necessary plans in place, but who implement? That is the issue where human factor comes in. This what we are just talking about now. This
electronic
doing
voting.
it electronically, doing it electronically. You find out the human factor we see coming in there is to actually to relate our people on the need to do it right, because it will be in our own interest, overall interest, to make sure this Amarana we whom is giving for rigging for any form of electoral malpractice.
Well, is this bill, does it consider voters that are in the rural settings, deep down rural settings that probably don't have network and...
Well, under the present dispensation, I don't really see any rural area now that is not covered.
That's true.
So,
are you sure
that
in
issue should not
Nigeria?
be... I guess even people that live in rural areas, I don't know, some of them are better off than those of us that even live in cities. In terms of technology, whatever, they have all the facilities. It's the commitment, individual factor that we keep on talking about. If we want to do it right, we can do it rightly.
That's it.
And we'll get results.
Okay, look at Sadi, you also want
Yes,
to
I aligned myself perfectly with Dr. Ekbo. What we have to do is to agree that we want to get this right. We've always complained about rigging, about electoral malpractices and everything. This, I think, will help us solve that problem. Yes, we may not have networks everywhere in Nigeria, but that will also help them determine where to place the polling units. You usually have a particular place in Oluko, for instance, where there's network. Those in Igosa can file out and come and vote in Oluko.
Of course.
Yes, if there is no network in Igosa. I mean, that's my idea. So somehow it's something that can be done, and I think that practice will make us perfect. If we put this in practice in 2019, hopefully, I think that by 2023, we will be getting our hands strengthened.
Okay.
And, you know, by 2027, we will be able to deal with it more effectively.
Okay, amendment number 5 states that besides manual registers, INEC is now mandated to keep electronic registers of voters, instead of the manual registers, the book-to-book and all that we have. So registers for voters will now be kept electronically, just like what you have.
Exactly.
You are going to have it. Is that good?
You know, Mr. Evans, I think that it's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, you will recall many years ago while we were growing up, I would hold the name of the bank now. When my dad sent me to bank those days to help him withdraw money, I'm usually given a tally to stay on the queue and wait till they are able to confirm from Lagos what his last balance or ledger is through landline phone. And by the time they do that, sometimes I may have been sent to withdraw just 15 naira. I will stay in the bank from 8 a.m. till about 4 p.m. or 3:30 p.m. That has been taken care of by online banking, online real time. So I think that is the same procedure. I think that it is excellent. It's perfect. Voters who complain that their names were omitted in the voters register will not need to wait for a week to election or 2 weeks to election to know that their names are not there. They can always check on their smartphones and know whether or not they are eligible voters. And when that is the case, if their names are not there, they can file back to INEC office or do the needful. I'm sure that even registering yourself online will even be made available. So I think that is going to be seamless. Yes, it will be a little bit cumbersome in the first instance, but I think that with practice, over time, with everyone committed to it, both INEC and the electoral, the parties, and of course Nigerians, and the government in particular, I think that we will have a headway.
Okay, Dr. Ekpo, just as we wrap up now, in addition to that, I know you want to say something. There's this part of it that we must quickly look at. Parties can now, I think that's amendment number 15, parties can now no longer impose arbitrary nomination fee on political aspirants. The bill passed prescribes limits for each elective office as follows: 150,000 naira for a ward councillorship aspirants in the FCT, and of course 250,000 naira for an area councillor chairmanship aspirants, 500,000 naira for House of Assembly aspirants, and all that. Quickly.
Well, before I get to that, let me quickly respond to the earlier question. The issue of keeping record electronically is very good, but I will also advise, based on our peculiar circumstances, that we must have a backup. Okay. Because otherwise, something you done electronically can just disappear, and I have no other place to refer to. That's for that. For the issue of
the arbitrary nomination fee
it's in good direction. Okay. But I think it's still on the high side. You know, if we want to get credible people to come forth to contest for elected positions, we want to make it very easy for them. I heard you talking about 500,000, more than 50,000 for Carol, House of Assembly 500,000. That is still on the high side. We must leave the space open for those who are credible.
And 10 million naira for presidential aspirant. That's
how many professors can afford that one?
All right, I think that's all time. I would have really loved us to continue, but because of time factor, that's all we can take on this segment today. I do hope that hopefully sometime subsequently we should be able to continue some of these issues. Thank you, gentlemen. Dr. Sado, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much, and also Dr. Ekpo. Thank you so much. All right, that's how we come to the high points of the program today, this morning on ITV. A very big thank you to you that took all the time right from 7 till this time. And I know that tomorrow, Thursday, the program continues with Sunday Occasion. My name is Evans from Goodbye, and God bless you.